Hello folks, this is Aitan Aja from InspiredWise.com and today we are going to talk about the Xiaomi Mi 11X smartphone, and I'm going to tell you all about its pros and cons and whether it's a device worth buying or not. So guys, let's first start with the unboxing for this one. Inside the box you will find the smartphone, a beefy 33-watt fast charger, a USB 2.0, USB A to USB-C cable, a soft silicone TPU cover, and there's a SIM tray ejector tool. There's also a USB-C to 3.5mm adapter inside the box. I tried that with my in-ear monitors and the sound that came out was pretty great. Those who don't know this, they need to know that the Mi 11X is a rebranded Redmi K40 or Poco F3 for our Indian market. These are all essentially the same smartphone and only the branding is a little bit different. Now let's talk about the build and design. At first glance it feels like a really elegant device with a thickness of 7.8mm and 196 grams of weight. It has a Corning Gorilla Glass 5 front and back, but the frame is a polycarbonate one. It has thin bezels, really small punch hole notch in the middle, the glass back is glossy and it does get smudges and fingerprints easily. The camera bump on the back is very cool looking, though it does protrude out quite a bit. The phone is available in 3 colors, which are Cosmic Black, Lunar White and the Celestial Silver color, which was the one that we had. It changes its hues depending upon the angle of light hitting it. It's a big smartphone, but I didn't feel that it was too chunky or unwieldy. The sides have a two-tone kind of finish with matte on the sides, and the top and bottom are really glossy. There's the power button and the volume rocker on this smartphone on the right hand side, and if you do look closely, the power button does look like an ordinary button, but it does have the fingerprint sensor on the inside, which is fast and works quite great. The earpiece is quite big, as it does have a big grill for the loudspeaker for the stereo pair of speakers on this one. There's an infrared blaster as well on the top, and at the bottom there's the dual SIM tray slot with no micro SD card slot. There's a USB-C 2.0 port in the middle and another loudspeaker right at the bottom. The camera module on the back has a triple sensor setup, and there's a directional microphone with an LED flash as well. The camera bump does come out a bit and the phone does rock on flat surfaces. There's IP53 protection here, but that's just for name. IP67 or better would have been much appreciated. The build and design does feel quite premium, though better waterproofing and ingress protection would be much appreciated. The haptics on this phone initially left something to be desired, but later on they were fixed quite a lot via updates. This phone is slightly slippery, so a case is always recommended, and it does rock a little bit when you use it without one. Cosmic Black is the glossy color variant for this one, so I would suggest you to avoid it. This plastic frame does get scratches with use. Now let's talk about the display on this smartphone. It has a 6.67-inch AMOLED display with a 2400 by 1800 resolution. The display has a maximum refresh rate of 120Hz and it supports HDR, but in terms of colors it's slightly limited as it's an 8-bit panel. By default, the display panel is set to show really vivid and oversaturated colors. There's an auto color mode in color schemes which would work like Apple's two-tone display technology, and there's an original color mode which shows color calibrated content, or you can go for the saturated mode which would always boost colors. In advanced settings, you will also find different color gamut options ranging from sRGB, P3 to the original color gamut, which identifies color gamut of your content and automatically shifts the colors according to that. So I tested all of these, and you can choose between the 60Hz and 120Hz refresh rate modes. There's an MEMC feature as well, which will add extra interpolated frames to your video content to make it appear smoother. So I would always suggest you to keep these features off, as high frame rate isn't necessarily better in all the conditions, especially if you are watching cinema which is shot in 24 FPS. In the video toolbox section, there's also an option to increase the contours of objects in videos. Personally, I would suggest you to keep these features off, as they have a detrimental effect on the battery life as well. The display brightness is good indoors, but the real challenge comes when you are outdoors. I'm not insinuating that the display is not bright enough. It's bright and vibrant display, but as soon as this device heats up outside, there's an automatic reduction in the brightness. So if you're out in peak New Delhi sun, then it's virtually impossible to use the camera application outdoors or even use this phone normally in the harsh sunlight outside, the one place where you will actually need all of that brightness. When the display is set to 120Hz, it does not stay at 120Hz all the time, but rather there's some sort of auto power saving tricks being implemented in the background here. The display sometimes uses an intermediate refresh rate of 90 Hz, but users can't choose that option manually. There's no additional 30, 48 Hz or 50 Hz mode like few Xiaomi phones in higher price brackets do have. So there is no adaptive refresh rate for videos, which can sometimes lead to jittery video viewing experience. But at the same time, this thing works great for gamers, as most games have refresh rate locked on to 120Hz unless the game specifies a lower refresh rate explicitly. The 360Hz touch sampling rate makes gaming and other things great. Due to the big screen size and thin bezels, there were some occasional ghost touches sometimes, but overall I felt that this device worked great. And using the video toolbox, you can even add live color filters to videos you're watching. Though the device can play back HDR and HDR10 plus content, but it can't sustain maximum brightness for really long. So if you're a video buff, you might be looking out for some other smartphone. And so HDR content is not viewable without issues on this smartphone. It does have wideband L1 support, and Netflix HDR also works, but we were getting a severe black crush issue while playing back HDR content. So HDR playback still requires a little bit of fix on this smartphone. And now let's talk about the specifications and performance for this one. It has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 870 5G octa-core chipset based on a 7nm process and Adreno 650 GPU. There's a 6GB RAM, 128GB storage option or an 8128 storage option. The storage is UFS 3.1 and the read-write speeds were pretty good. The RAM is LPDDR5 and day-to-day response and usage is really great, but there is no option to expand the storage on this one or choose a higher storage variant. The OnePlus 9R and X60 Pro have Snapdragon 870 as well, but they are slightly costlier smartphones. RAM management is good here, but it does kill apps sometimes for saving battery, and there are still some MIUI bugs here and there. The Snapdragon 870 chipset is a heavy hitter as shown by the benchmark scores as well. And now let's talk about gaming on the smartphone. This is the Genshin Impact gameplay. As you can see, most games run great as the 870 is a great chipset with good performance, but when it does heat up, the display gives up on you and the whole experience starts going down the drain. For the things which run on 120Hz, the experience is great, but the problem is that as soon as you stop touching the display or interacting with the display, it goes straight down to 60Hz. So the experience sometimes gets a little bit stuttery. It's stutter free for games which run on 60Hz, and games like Asphalt etc. run good on maximum settings. And then there are demanding titles like your Genshin Impact, but those can also be played on higher settings. For places like New Delhi, the heating and display dimming issues are a little bit more pronounced, and Xiaomi seriously need to patch things up with a software update, and if that's not possible, they should explicitly say it. There's game turbo mode as well, which does help you while gaming. Normally most games run great and the thermal throttling issues do not happen a lot if the refresh rate is taken care of, and even gaming for extended periods of time was something that was easily possible, and I was able to play games for really long without any major hiccups or so. And the heating issues are less pronounced if you are indoors, but if you are in a little bit well lit place or places which are maybe above 25 degrees, not well air conditioned, then you will see that the temperature does get high. The main camera sensor on this smartphone is the same as the Redmi Note 10. It's a 48 megapixel f1.8 sensor. It has a 0.8 micrometer pixel size and it supports face detection autofocus. There's an 8 megapixel ultra wide sensor with a f2.2 aperture and a 119 degree field of view as well. There's a 5 megapixel macro camera sensor with an f2.4 aperture and 1.12 micrometer pixel size. If we talk about the quality, the main sensor shoots up to 4K videos at 30 frames per second and slow motion videos up to 960 frames per second at 1080p is possible. This gyro EI stabilization support and video quality was pretty good. The selfie camera is a 20 megapixel f2.5 sensor, and trust me, that aperture straight away means that low light performance on the selfie camera is not that great. Anything above f2.2 on most camera sensors leads to low light performance being dull, and it leads to lower light gathering capabilities, and that's why all of this happens. The maximum video quality that the selfie camera can provide is 1080p videos at 30 frames per second or 720p slow motion videos at 120 frames per second. The camera UI is packed with a lot of features, and sometimes it feels a little bit too cluttered for my taste, and most people would be spoiled for options. The Pro mode here is also quite detailed, and you can save images in RAW format from the main as well as the ultra wide sensor. The IMX582 48 megapixel sensor at the back has a 6p lens with 25mm equivalent focal length. The AI mode has decent optimizations for bringing out colors in most of the scenes and situations, but turning it off leads to undersaturated photos, though those photos come with a little bit more realistic colors. The color science for this camera is definitely in need of updates, as I felt that the camera lacks in terms of quality behind the rivals in the same price segment. Something like the OnePlus 9R does take better photos on a regular basis when compared to the Mi 11X. The main camera's low light performance is poor, but when you take a look at the ultra wide camera in low light, you'll start crying. Even with the night mode, the images come out soft and really grainy with a lot of noise artifacts. But the macro camera here gives me a ray of hope, as this 5 megapixel sensor shoots great macros, and there's autofocus as well on this macro sensor, which is absent on most of the macro sensors around, and this macro sensor can shoot videos as well. It's pretty good in a lot of ways and really impressive. 4K video quality is great when you are outdoors or in daylight, but indoors and in low light conditions the quality suffers considerably. Personally, I feel quite a lot of these issues can be resolved via software updates. Video stabilization is acceptable but not mind-blowing. The 48 megapixel sensor does lead to some disappointment in few situations with its lack of details. The front camera beautifies you by default, so do remember to turn beautification off. Low light videos show high degree of shakiness as EIS struggles at night. Their image processing algorithm crushes shadows, and there's a huge room for improvement. And Gcam works on this one, but truth is that there's no way around lack of detail caused due to the sensor resolution and pixel size. There's no 4K 60 fps video as well, because the sensor is limited at 4K 30 frames per second videos. And now let's talk about the battery on this one. It has a 4520 mAh non-removable lithium polymer battery which supports up to 33 watt fast charging, and Xiaomi claims that this can charge up to 100% in 52 minutes, but it took more than an hour while I was testing the smartphone with Wi-Fi etc. on. It does not support wireless charging, and ideally you can easily expect 5 to 6 hours of screen on time. It does heat up while charging, so gaming while charging is a big no-no. One day battery life is seen easily on the smartphone, and you can easily get up to 7 hours plus of screen on time with the always on display turned off and a lot of other demanding features turned off. Let's talk about the software on this one. If you set this smartphone up properly, you can avoid a lot of ads. There were a lot of issues initially, but a lot of them were solved with the MIUI 12.5 update, and things are very smooth now. There are some bloatware apps pre-installed, but for the most part, there are no ads or spammy notifications right now. Xiaomi promised an option to uninstall system applications, but it is not here yet. In a lot of places, this seems to me like a big iOS ripoff, but to each his own. Sometimes the smartphone just restarts randomly or even kills apps completely, even the ones which are supposed to stay running in the background. Lot of stuff is here like dual apps, multi-window support, and a lot of other things which makes MIUI 12 a lot enjoyable and usable for anybody like me. I feel with this latest iteration of the control center, which I think they have blatantly copied from iOS, the overall look and feel of the whole MIUI operating system has become a little bit better than before, and with the latest updates they have increased the smoothness and responsiveness of the device as well. Earlier the live wallpaper on my desktop used to lag a lot on the home screen, but right now that's not the case, and the smartphone feels pretty snappy to use. Now let's talk about the sound on this one. It comes with a pair of stereo speakers, and it does not have a 3.5mm jack. It does support high resolution 24-bit 192 kHz audio, and it also supports Dolby Atmos audio. And although the top speaker in the stereo pair wasn't really loud, it had a lot of depth to it, and hence the overall sound came out really balanced. The maximum volume isn't as jaw-dropping as something like the Asus ROG Phone 5, but it's good enough for your normal day-to-day usage. When I think about wired audio, the provided Type-C to 3.5mm adapter, when paired with the right kind of headphones, does provide great detailed HD audio, and I really liked it a lot. Now let's talk about connectivity on the smartphone. It has support for dual SIM, VoLTE, VoWiFi, Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi dual band as well. It supports Bluetooth 5.1 A2DP and low energy Bluetooth as well. It does not have NFC, but it supports really accurate GPS with support for Navic as well. So if you are somebody who is using the smartphone in India, you will get accurate GPS lock-ons. It does have an infrared port which allows you to control your appliances and often comes in handy. There's no FM radio. The USB port at the bottom is a USB 2.0 Type-C USB-C port, so maximum transfer speeds are also really limited. It also has support for USB OTG. It does have all kinds of sensors, and in general there's support for almost everything, but the proximity sensor is a gyroscope based sensor, so sometimes it is not able to dim the display or bring it back to life after you attend a call. The smartphone does support 4G+, which is carrier aggregation, so you get great download speeds and upload speeds. It supports very few 5G bands, which is only 2, but 5G is not rolled out yet in India and a lot of other countries, so that should not be a problem for a lot of people. Network reception was also pretty good for the smartphone. Now let's talk about the pricing for this one. It starts at a price of 30,000 rupees for 6 128GB and 32,000 rupees for 8 128GB. The 6 128GB does seem like the more value for money option. With proper cards and offers, you can get up to 1 to 2,000 rupees cashback. It has to compete against iQOO 7, which is a superior phone in a lot of ways. The Realme X7 Max is also a great competitor for the smartphone, but the big issues on the smartphone still remain. Things like the display issues, proximity sensor issues during long calling sessions, and some people also pointed out online that the volume rocker does get loose with heavy usage, which I didn't see in my usage, but it can happen. There's no expandable or big storage variant here, and the main camera is above average and image processing definitely needs work. So all of these things counted, the Mi 11X is still a good phone, but there are other options in the market as well. So guys, this was it for this video. In case you like this one, don't forget to smash the thumbs up button and do subscribe to Inspire to Rise for more awesome tech videos like this one. And guys, no matter what you do, stay inspired to rise.